Yes people, welcome to Hype or Shite, where we look at up and coming fighters from boxing or MMA to see if they will live up to the hype or if they're just complete shite. In today's video, we're looking at the highly rated British heavyweight Moses Itauma.
Moses Itauma! Feet out, hasn't he? And look, what a start!
What a start! Inside the opening 15 seconds, Marcel Boda crumbles to the canvas, legs all over the place. He's a
very well skilled, great amateur pedigree. And straight away on that front foot. And oh, what a shot!
Seen him in the ring this year. Oh, left uppercut.
Now, just from watching a few of his highlights, you can understand why Moses Itauma is one of the most hyped heavyweights in a long while. For me, there's not one thing that Moses does that you can point out and say that's what he's best at. He hasn't got the one-punch power of a Wilder or an AJ. He doesn't have the boxing brain of an Usyk or a Fury. But I believe it's a combination of all those things, maybe not to the level of those fighters mentioned, but he's shown to be very well-rounded in his approach to the start of his career. And at just 12-0, with 10 of those fights come by KO at just age 20, it's extremely impressive. But as we all know, it's not about the record, it's about the opponents. So let's take a look at who he's fought. In my opinion, the level of opponents Moses has fought is highly impressive, considering the age and the number of fights he's had. His best win being Dempsey McKeon, who he knocked out in the first round, which is extremely common for Moses Itauma. However, in his last fight, it took him 2 rounds against Mike Balogan. To be honest, this was a keep busy fight for Moses Itauma. He was expected to win the way that he did, but to be fair to Mike Balogan, every time he got dropped he kept coming forward, which I think gave Moses a new look and something that he hadn't seen before, and he handled it with flying colours, and I think it will really help him in his next matchup that was just announced with Dillian Whyte. It was just recently announced that Moses Itauma will face Dillian Whyte in his first main event in Riyadh. Now, Dillian hasn't looked good in a long while. His last few fights he's looked dreadful and hasn't really looked good since the second Alexander Povetkin fight in 2021. That being said, I don't give Dillian much of a chance in this fight, and nor do these other pundits.
Itauma against White in August, sort of youth against experience. Who wins that one?
I like Dillian, but I think Moses wins and wins well. I think he's a class act. I think Dylan's best days are probably behind him, and I think he's a special talent, Moses. So I think Moses wins.
Because Dillian Whyte is at that stage of his career that he's not the fighter he once was. He's got a great name, and I think, listen, Dillian's going to get a great payday for it, and it's a good opportunity for him to put himself back up in the mix. So it's great matchmaking on his side. But for me, Moses Itauma, I think that his style, he wins that fight comfortably.
I think so. And I mean, you're talking about the matchmaking. I think it is because a previous world champion, highly ranked guy, was he a world champion?
No, he wasn't. He was interim. WBC interim.
A previously highly ranked guy who's fought some of the top names around. I think it could be a good win on Moses' CV.
Unfortunately, there's no real way to answer this question, we can only speculate. However, I do believe that Balogan did catch him with a half-decent hook. Unfortunately for him, Moses caught him with a better one at the same time. Although I think that's a half-decent hook, it's hard to put any stock into it due to the fact that Moses landed at the exact same time and knocked him out. Balogan has been known to have a bit of power, so I think it's something we can think about. He was able to take a shot and give one, so that shows more that he has a chin and he doesn't, but it's not a definitive answer as to whether Moses has a glass chin or not. That's something we can only find out when he gets hit. This is a question I don't see asked enough, in my opinion, when it comes to Moses Itauma, because for as good as he's looked, it's only been in the first half of the fight. So what happens after? Maybe he gasses completely, and if his opponents are able to weather an early storm, like I believe a lot of the top 10 heavyweights will do, then we might see him really in trouble. Now, his next fight is scheduled for 12 rounds against Dillian, and as I said before, I don't think he makes it at the first round, but it's something to consider. because most boxers now at rounds 8, 9 and 10, that's where it gets really hard, especially for heavyweights. They've got a lot of weight to move around, especially the way Moses fights as well. He's a mover, he cuts off angles. It's not exactly a easy style. It's very tiring, and it can potentially gas him out pretty quickly. He's looked good in all his fights so far, and as long as he's went his 6th round and he looked fine then, so it's safe to say he'd be okay, but we don't know for sure. He could just completely gas, and again, we can't really answer this until we find out in the future. We could look at his amateur career, but I don't put much stock into that, just because I think it's a completely different ball game from the pros, so that won't give us a definitive answer to the question. So, with all that said, do I think Moses the Tamer will live up to the hype, or is he a load of shite? For me, the hype is real, although there are some questions like his chin, or can he go the rounds. I believe from what he's shown us in his fights so far, by showing good boxing ability, fast movement, and the added power, I believe it's a matter of time before he wins a world title. And due to his age, even if he comes up short in this generation of heavyweights, he's still in his prime for the next, and with a lot more experience, of course. But I do believe he will earn a world title before then, as Usyk will most likely retire after his rematch with Daniel Dubois, and the belts get fragmented because I believe Usyk has Dubois' number. Stay tuned for a video on that. With all that said and done, this is the end of the video, and this was my first video, so if you did enjoy, please like and subscribe so I can fulfill my dream to become full-time unemployed. It's a big dream of mine, so please subscribe. I'll be doing videos on boxing and MMA, so a bit for everyone. But yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.